In the land of Zubari, where the golden savanna met the silent mountains, and the sun bowed low to kiss the earth each evening, there lived a man whose name echoed like a quiet drum across the hills, Jabari. He was not born noble, but fortune had carved a throne for him from sweat and silence. A trader of rare silks, oils, and wisdom, Jabari was known from the coasts of Kambala to the deserts of Lakara. His mansion stood like a lion among goats, carved from dark red stone, polished by hand, and built with the patience of ancestors. In that grand house, with tall windows open to the breath of the earth, and gardens that sang when the wind passed through them, lived a woman. Her name was Ayana. She was not born into fortune. No grand drums were played at her birth. No oracle prophesied her rise. But the gods gave her a gift more powerful than beauty, a heart that could endure like stone, and love like water, shaping without force, but never breaking. Ayana had served in Jabari's house since she was 19, a maid, yes, but more than that, she was the unseen thread that stitched the house together. She woke before the sun, folded silence into her steps, and knew every creak of the old wooden floors as if they whispered to her in the night. The others came and went. Some lasted a moon, some a year. But Ayana remained. She watched him, her master, from behind curtains in carved door frames. She watched the way he walked slowly through his garden after trade caravans arrived, running his fingers across the leaves of his lime trees, as if seeking something lost. She watched the kindness in his hands, though he rarely smiled. And she watched the pain in his eyes when no one else looked. Yes, Ayana loved him. But she never spoke it. In her world, love from servant to master was like speaking to the gods without incense, a silence punished by shame. She swallowed it. Let it bloom quietly, like a flower that opens only at night. And Jabari? He never saw her, not truly. Not in the way a man sees the sun and remembers warmth. To him, she was the quiet one, the reliable one. A maid who never forgot his tea or misplaced his letters. A shadow in the shape of loyalty. Until the day everything changed. It began with a journey. Jabari was to ride north to the city of Ishari to attend the House of Voices, a council of traders and nobles where decisions were made not just in gold, but in whispers. He rode with his guards and his books, as he always did, never noticing that Ayana watched him from the rooftop, her hands wrapped around a broom she had not moved in minutes. But the gods, they twist the paths of men and women like vines in a storm. On the third day of his journey, a terrible wind rose in the mountains. Not the wind of nature, but the wind of jealousy. Rival traders, men with coins for eyes and fire for hearts, set upon Jabari's caravan as it crossed the cliffs of Nduvu. They came not to rob, but to ruin. Swords were drawn. Arrows flew. And Jabari, struck by a weapon soaked in dust and venom, fell not to death, but to something worse. Blindness. The healer said the poison had not touched his heart, but it had burned his eyes. He would live, but never again see the blue cloak of sky or the curve of a smile. When they returned him to Zubari, he did not weep. He simply sat. Silent. A lion whose world had gone dark. In the mansion of the Golden Lion, voices grew quiet. Servants murmured in corners. Some left fearing misfortune, others called it a curse. But Ayana remained. She brought him food. She cleaned the garden. She read to him, softly, in the evenings, her voice trembling with restraint, never letting her heart show, though it beat like a drum in her chest. And Jabari began to listen. Not with his ears alone, but with a part of him long forgotten. He noticed the softness in her voice. The way she paused before saying his name. The scent of her skin, like hibiscus and smoke. And in that darkness, he began to see. One evening, as the rains came early and the scent of wet earth filled the air, Jabari asked a question. Your name, he said, voice dry like bark. I do not know it. She turned her head sharply. Her heart raced. Ayana, she whispered. He nodded slowly. You have been here, how long? 11 years, master. 11, he repeated it as if it were a riddle. And I did not know. You were not meant to, she said, voice trembling. Silence stretched between them like a bridge made of glass. You stayed, he said finally. Even now. She did not answer. What could she say? That she loved him? That every day she dreamed he would look at her and see not a maid, but a woman, a soul? No. She said nothing. But he smiled. The first true smile in weeks. You are not a servant, Ayana, he said quietly. You are something else. And with that, he turned his face toward the rain, as if the gods had whispered something he alone could hear. That night, Ayana wept in her room. Not from sadness, but from the terrible ache of hope. And hope, in the wrong heart, can be more dangerous than fire. Weeks passed, and the house slowly breathed again. Jabari began to walk in the gardens, guided by Ayana's voice. He would rest his hand lightly on her shoulder, and she would describe the colors of the flowers, the weight of the sky, the sound of bees drunk on nectar. They laughed. He told her stories from his travels. She told him poems from her grandmother's village. And the world, once dark, began to glow not with sight, but with presence. Then one morning, as the sun broke the horizon with a fire that painted the sky gold and crimson, Jabari said something that shattered Ayana's world. Will you marry me? He asked softly. Ayana froze. Her heart stopped, then raced. The tray in her hand trembled. He could not see her. He had never seen her. And yet, he asked. Master, she began. Not as your master, he interrupted. As a man. As someone who sees more now than I ever did with eyes. Ayana's voice vanished. Was this real? Was this a test? She could not breathe. And yet part of her wanted to scream yes to the sky, to dance barefoot in the dust. But something ancient held her back. Fear. Please, he said. Don't answer yet. Let me ask you properly. And he reached into the folds of his robe and took out a ring gold, carved with the emblem of his family, the lion with fire in its eyes. I will wait, he whispered. But not forever. And Ayana? She turned and walked away, the ring still clutched in her hand, her heart roaring like thunder. But in the shadows, not all watched with joy. For there were others who wished to wear the name Lady Jabari, women of power, of station, of wealth. And they would not let a servant steal what they believed was theirs. The storm had only begun. When the news spread like wildfire through the streets of Zubari that Jabari, the mighty trader, had asked his maid, Ayana, to be his bride, the city held its breath. Markets grew silent for a moment. The children stopped their games. Even the ancient baobab trees seemed to lean in, as if listening to a tale older than time. It was a tale of love hidden beneath layers of silence, of hearts speaking when words dared not tread. Ayana moved through the house with a new weight upon her shoulders. The ring rested in her palm like a spark, burning with possibility but also threat. Her world was shifting, as if the earth beneath her feet had begun to tremble. The women of the city whispered in shadowed corners. A maid to marry a lion, they scoffed. Is this not blasphemy? A servant claiming the lion's throne? And the jealous ones plotted. Among them was Layla, a noblewoman whose laughter could freeze rivers. She had long awaited Jabari's hand, weaving dreams of power in golden halls. The thought that a mere maid, someone so unseen, could stand before the man she desired stirred a tempest within her. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of purple and gold, Layla sent her servants to spread rumors, tales of secrets, of lies, of a maid unworthy. She called upon her allies, traders, officials, and even some servants to sow doubt. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Ayana wrestled with her heart. How could she say yes when the world would not allow it? How could she be more than a shadow in a house built for kings? Jabari, sensing her turmoil, sat beside her one night beneath the great baobab tree in the courtyard. Its twisted branches stretched like the fingers of ancestors reaching toward the stars. "Do you fear the world's gaze?" he asked gently. Ayana looked down, the soft glow of lantern light catching her tears. "It is not fear of you, Jabari. It is fear of what they will say, what they will do." He took her hand in his, strong and steady despite the blindness that darkened his eyes. "Let them say. Let them do. I have seen beyond the eyes. I see you, Ayana. Not as a servant, but as my equal, my partner." The night deepened around them, filled with the songs of crickets and the whispers of the past. But the world outside was restless. Layla's machinations began to bite. The trusted servants who once nodded to Ayana now avoided her glance. The traders who brought gifts to Jabari stopped coming, fearing scandal. Ayana felt the walls closing in. One morning, as she tended the garden, she found a note slipped beneath a clay pot. The handwriting was elegant, cruel. "Stay away from Jabari, or face ruin." Her breath caught. She looked toward the house, its red stone walls shining bright in the morning sun, and wondered if love was a blessing or a curse. Days passed, and the tension grew thick like the humidity before a storm. Jabari's health waned slightly, his blindness a veil that grew heavier with each sunrise. Yet, in the shadows, a new figure arrived, a young man named Kofi, nephew of Jabari's oldest friend. Tall, sharp-eyed, dressed in the clean lines of a city official suit, he brought news from the council in Ishari and offers of alliance. But Kofi's presence complicated everything. He looked at Ayana with a mixture of curiosity and something darker, desire. He questioned her place in Jabari's life, his sharp tongue cutting through moments of fragile peace. One evening, under the canopy of stars, Kofi confronted Jabari. "Ayana is no wife for you," he said quietly but firmly. "You need someone of your station, a partner who can walk beside you in the light, not hide in shadows." Jabari's face was calm, but his voice held the weight of mountains. "She is the only one who sees me, Kofi. Not with eyes, but with heart." Kofi's jaw clenched. "And yet you ask a servant to be your queen?" "Because love is not measured by gold or garments, but by truth," Jabari replied. Kofi left that night, the wind closing the door behind him like the last breath of a storm. Ayana, unaware of the confrontation, spent hours weaving stories in her mind, ancient tales her grandmother once told her about love that defied the gods themselves. She whispered to the night, "If this is fate, let it be written in stars." But fate, as always, has its own designs. One night, a fire broke out near the merchants' district, a blaze fierce and wild. Rumors whispered that enemies of Jabari had struck, sending a message cloaked in flames. Jabari, though blind, felt the heat in his bones. He gathered his trusted men, and with Ayana by his side, they rushed to the scene. In the chaos, a shadow moved toward Ayana. Hands grabbed her. The world spun. Jabari reached out, his voice a roar. "Let her go!" But the night swallowed the sound. Ayana's heart hammered. She struggled free, running through smoke and fire, her dress catching flame at the hem. Jabari found her moments later, the scent of smoke thick around them, and in that moment, he realized how deeply she had become his world. He cradled her, feeling the heat of her skin against his own. And in that touch, a promise was born not just of love, but of a fight for their future. The House of the Golden Lion was no longer just a home. It was a battlefield. And their story was far from over. Would you like me to continue with part 3? The fire that roared through the merchant district left behind scars that would not fade with the passing seasons. Ashes blanketed the earth like dark snow, and whispers of treachery curled through the air like smoke on the wind. The city of Zubiri, once vibrant and humming with life, now seemed to hold its breath beneath a heavy sky. Inside the walls of the Golden Lion Mansion, tension wove itself tighter with each passing day. Jabari's blindness weighed heavily on him, not as a punishment, but as a veil revealing truths unseen before. The man who once ruled with eyes sharp as a hawk's now relied on senses older than sight, the touch of a hand, the sound of a voice, the pulse of a heart. Ayana moved through the house with grace and strength, her every step a testament to the years spent in silent devotion. Yet beneath her composed exterior, the fire of uncertainty burned fiercely. The ring he had given her rested in the folds of her dress, an ember of hope she dared not let glow too brightly. One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills and the horizon bled into hues of purple and gold, Ayana found herself alone in the courtyard beneath the sprawling branches of the ancient baobab tree. Its great limbs stretched toward the stars, a reminder of the ancestors who watched over the land and its people. The night air was thick with the scent of jasmine and the distant sound of drums from a nearby festival. Ayana closed her eyes and breathed deeply, seeking solace in the rhythms of the earth. Suddenly, a soft voice broke the stillness. "May I join you?" She turned to see Jabari, guided by his cane, his face calm but marked by the trials he had endured. "Of course," she replied, stepping aside. He reached out, his fingers brushing hers as he settled beside her on the cool stone bench. "The world outside these walls grows darker," he said quietly. "But here, with you, I find light." Ayana's heart swelled with emotion. "I wish I could bear the weight for you." "You already do," Jabari said, his voice steady. "More than you know." Their hands intertwined, a silent vow amid the ancient tree's watchful gaze. But peace was fleeting. The arrival of Kofi still lingered like a shadow, his sharp words echoing in the halls. And Layla's plotting grew bolder. One night, cloaked in darkness, Ayana overheard whispers among the servants. Plans to discredit her, to accuse her of theft and deceit, to force her from the house. Fear threatened to consume her, but she remembered the stories of her grandmother, the tales of women who faced storms and emerged stronger. With quiet resolve, Ayana sought the wisdom of the village elder, Mama Zara. The old woman's eyes sparkled with knowing. "Love is a fire that can warm or burn," she said. "You must choose how to wield it." Mama Zara taught Ayana ancient prayers and songs, invoking protection and courage. She spoke of the balance between strength and humility, of the power in patience and in standing tall like the baobab. Empowered, Ayana returned to the mansion, ready to face the gathering storm. Meanwhile, Jabari convened his closest allies, traders and elders who believed in his vision beyond sight. "We will protect what is ours," he declared. "Not with swords alone, but with honor and truth." Together, they devised plans to expose Layla's schemes and to reclaim the trust of their people. Days turned into weeks. The tension in the air was a taut string, ready to snap. Then came the night of the great festival, when the city celebrated the harvest under the full moon's glow. It was a night for dancing, for stories, and for the unveiling of hearts. Jabari, with Ayana by his side, stepped into the crowd. The two men, Kofi in his formal suit, and the blind Jabari in his black kimono, walked behind her, shadows of strength and doubt. As drums echoed and voices rose in song, Ayana felt the weight of countless eyes upon her. Then, suddenly, a cry pierced the celebration. Layla had confronted them in the square, her voice sharp and accusing. She is a servant, unworthy of his name, a thief among lions. The crowd murmured, tension rippling through the gathered masses. Jabari raised his hand, silence falling like a cloak. Let truth be heard, he said. One by one, witnesses stepped forward, servants who vouched for Ayana's honor, traitors who recounted her kindness, friends who spoke of her strength. Layla's accusations faltered, her face paled beneath the moonlight. In that moment, Ayana found her voice. I am no thief, she said, steady and clear. I love Jabari not for his name, but for the man he is beyond sight. The crowd's mood shifted. Respect and admiration blossomed like flowers after rain. And in Jabari's heart, a fire ignited, a promise that their love would endure beyond darkness and doubt. But the journey was not yet complete. For the gods, who watch from beyond the stars, had more in store. Shall I continue with the final part now? The festival's flames had dwindled, leaving only the glowing embers of a night that changed hearts and fates alike. The city of Zubri breathed anew, as if awakening from a long, restless dream. Inside the walls of the Golden Lion, the air felt lighter, but the weight of the future pressed gently upon Ayana and Jabari. Their journey, marked by trials of shadow and light, had brought them to a place where courage and love intertwined like the roots of the great baobab. Jabari's sightless eyes held a wisdom that went beyond vision. He no longer sought the world in colors or shapes, but in the rhythms of heartbeats and the warmth of presence. One morning, as dawn painted the sky with strokes of amber and rose, Jabari called Ayana to his side. His fingers found hers, their touch a language older than words. My love, he said softly, we have walked a path few dare to tread. The world questioned us, the storms tried to break us, yet here we stand. Will you marry me not as a maid, but as my equal, my partner in this life and the next? Tears welled in Ayana's eyes, a cascade of joy and relief. She nodded, her voice a whisper carried on the morning breeze. Yes, Jabari. With all that I am. The wedding was unlike any the city had seen. The elders gathered beneath the baobab, their chants weaving blessings into the very air. Ayana wore a gown of flowing white, embroidered with the symbols of her ancestors, stars that guided, rivers that gave life, and lions that roared with courage. Jabari, in his black kasoma, stood tall, his face radiant despite the blindness that cloaked his eyes. The ceremony was a tapestry of traditions, drums beating like the heartbeat of the earth, the pouring of libations to honor the spirits, the sharing of kola nuts as a symbol of unity. As they exchanged vows, a hush fell over the gathering. The wind carried their promises far beyond the walls, to the mountains and the seas, to the ancestors who smiled upon them. Their love became legend, told and retold in hushed tones and joyful songs. Ayana, once a silent shadow, rose as a queen not of gold or titles, but of strength and grace. She ruled not from a throne, but from the hearts of those who saw her truth. Jabari's blindness became a symbol not of loss, but of vision beyond the eyes. Together, they taught their people that love is not seen, but felt. That courage is not born from power, but from the heart's unwavering light. Years passed like the gentle flow of a river. Their children played beneath the baobab's shade, their laughter weaving new stories into the fabric of Zubari. And the house of the Golden Lion stood stronger, wiser, and filled with the echoes of a love that refused to be silenced. In the end, the greatest sight was not what the eyes could behold, but what the soul could see. The story of Ayana and Jabari is a reminder through time. Love is the greatest vision, the truest power, and the deepest legacy. Script for voiceover,